Welcome, everybody, to the Huddle, KGUN9's weekly streaming sports talk show. March Madness edition this time around. I'm Jason Barr, joined by Pat Paris. Pat, good afternoon.
March Madness. It's maddening sometimes.
All right, Arizona, 2 seed in the West. Let's put up that bracket, Pat, first up, and take a look. Long Beach State, 15 seed against Dan Monson, the coach who gave Tommy Lloyd to start. And then you get the winner of Dayton and Nevada. Two non-Power 5 teams there in the second round. Arizona undefeated against non-Power 5 teams this year. And that leads us, Pat, to our Huddle poll question this week. And that is, what do you think of Arizona's NCAA bracket? A, great draw onto the Sweet 16. B, hold your horses after 2 recent losses, 2 of the last 3 games for Arizona, and then losing to Princeton in the first round last year. Or 3, okay, let's just take it 1 game at a time. Pat, where are you? 1, 2, or 3 on Arizona's bracket this year?
You always do this to me because I could take little pieces of all 3, and
maybe that's
why. That's maybe a sign of a great poll question, Jason, is you're not just all in on one. But I'm going to go on number 1 because simply I do feel better about this team. I wish they were playing a little bit better over the last 2 weeks, but I feel good about this team in the draw that they got. I really do think the Sweet 16 is the next stop for this team. And so yes, there's some hesitation because of what happened last year, but don't forget they made the Sweet 16 the year before, and it was just a horrible matchup against Houston. And now we see what Houston's built into.
Yeah, and in San Antonio too.
Yes, and it was practically a home game for Houston. So I really, and 3, I'm gonna just, that's just too conservative. I'm not going to go that way. I'm all in on this team, and I'm all in on the Sweet 16.
I'm going with 1 as well. I think that's probably where most of the fans can go. I totally understand at number 2, but keep in mind, Tommy Lloyd has never lost back-to-back games in his 3 seasons as Arizona head coach. I don't think it's happening here. And also, I saw a very interesting stat, Pat, back in 2000, 2 years ago, so 2022, Caleb Love had a bad ACC tournament and then had the great NCAA tournament.
That's right.
So he can turn it on and off like a light switch. And so I think that gives me a little bit more hope going into this year. I think the draw means so much. We got some normal teams in there, right? I don't think we have a team that's got 4 guards that's going to shoot over everybody like Buffalo did. Right. I don't think we've got a team with a style they've never seen, like a Princeton or somebody like that. So I like this getting to the Sweet 16. Yep. Now let's take it from there once they get to the Sweet 16. But as far as these first 2 games, I really like how it sets up for Arizona.
Yeah, and I do too. And I think that while not everybody on this team has been on this team, there's enough of those players that remember last year. They're not going to let that happen. It's one of the reasons why you brought in a Keyshawn Johnson and a Caleb Love is you want to have that toughness of how you make it through these monster 3 weekends in a row where you've got to win 6 games. Or at least 5 games just to get to the title game, which both Keyshawn and Caleb have done in the previous 2 years. Caleb with North Carolina, of course, and with Keyshawn with South San Diego. And so you've got guys that have that. We used to say, Jason, the Rolodex. You can use the Rolodex to call upon things. Nowadays, I guess you just you use your phone and you got everything in there. But they have
the NVIDIA H100 chips, Pat.
I'll go with that, Jason.
I'm kidding. Okay. Hey, I don't like the way the Pac-12 tournament ended, though, Pat. I know they're more rested, and I know that they're healthy, and that's really important. But I don't like the way N'Faly Dante gets hurt. Falls against Arizona in the Pac-12 semifinals, and N'Faly Dante goes to the locker room. Arizona builds up a 10-point lead, and N'Faly Dante comes out of the locker room, and then N'Faly Dante takes over the entire tournament. Omar Ballo did not get a shot off in the second half against Oregon. That can't happen. And then we saw what N'Faly Dante did in the championship game. He went 12 for 12 with 3 steals, completely altered all the shots, completely changed the whole game. I don't like the way they were dominated. I'm going to take that. I'm going to just say, hey, listen, Umar Ballo's a nice player. He's not a top tier player like Dante or Zach Edey. Okay. So, Arizona's more of a team, but I don't like the way the Pac-12 tournament ended, though. I don't like the way they've lost 2 out of 3. Combine that with giving up 100 points to Stanford earlier this year. But you know what? Unless you're UConn, everybody's got a little something bad that happened to them this year.
And they do. And that's generally with the teams that, they find a way to get over that hurdle or get over that bad loss or that bad memory of a loss. And when it comes to Oregon, Jason, they play South Carolina. We're just looking at that, and I think most of us are going to pick Oregon to win that game because we know how good Oregon is playing. This is a team that was supposed to be this good all along. They were supposed to be as good.
Well, they're playing down a couple guys.
Right. And Dante's he's just one of those players that if he gets on a roll, he's hard to stop, obviously, and he's a terrific shooter inside. I think what we saw from Umar Ballo, though, is I think we saw him revert back to what we saw about a month ago before he went on that streak. What was it? 8 straight double-doubles, yeah. I think, where he just became a dominant player. But before he had that streak of 8 straight, he was struggling a little bit with his shot, with his confidence, with whatever. And I think maybe that was brought out against Oregon. You got to credit Oregon for some of that. But in a way, maybe that's just a reminder to Umar Ballo that this isn't just going to come easy. Everybody who has a big man is going to try to stop you. And Oregon was able to. You just hope that on this side of in the West that there isn't anybody that's as big and strong as Umar.
Yeah, and that's what we're talking about with a favorable bracket here.
Yeah.
There's a player. There's a couple good players in there for Nevada and Dayton. Long Beach State, they run a little bit of a hot streak. For people who don't know the story, the Long Beach State coach, Dan Monson, was told a little over a week ago that he wasn't going to be back next year. The team then plays spirited basketball and then goes on to win the Big West tournament, and that's how Long Beach State gets the automatic bid. Dan Monson, way back in the day, was head coach at Gonzaga. He recruited Tommy Lloyd when Tommy Lloyd was a player at Walla Walla Community College, but didn't offer him a scholarship and said, hey, call me when you're getting ready to go into coaching if that's what you want to do. Monson went to Minnesota, but Mark Few at Gonzaga honored the agreement, and the rest is history. And so here they are playing. And as you were saying to me, they almost had a regular season game this year, Pat.
Yeah. And this is a Long Beach State team that obviously has a lot to play for, and you pointed that out in the story you did last night, and did an excellent job telling that story with how Long Beach State must use that as a real motivating factor because you get your coach fired, really, right? Yeah. And now you're fighting for him. He gets to stay your coach. So they got a lot to play for. They got a lot to, kind of that chip on their shoulder. And Arizona needs to be mindful of that. But I think as Tommy Lloyd said, you're playing to win now. You might have your best friend sitting on the bench on the other end of the court. You're gonna play to beat him. The thing that sticks out to me, Jason, is regardless of how this season went and the ebbs and flows for Arizona basketball, you always draw strength on what happened now 27 years ago for Arizona basketball. And you think, okay, a 2 seed's a pretty good seed, right? And maybe a 25-8 record doesn't look all that impressive. But in today's basketball, 25-8 gets you a 2 seed, right? Because there's more parity than there was 27 years ago.
There's a lot of criticism, Pat, that Arizona is a weak 2 seed. And I can see that a little bit because you've got Iowa State that won its conference tournament. If Arizona is really the top 2 seed because they're in the same bracket, right, as North Carolina, which is the 4th 1 seed. So that really puts Arizona as 5th in the country as far as its seeding.
Right.
They shouldn't be 5th in the country. Iowa State should be ahead.
A lot of things.
Tennessee should be ahead.
Iowa State fans, as Jason knows, and I don't know if our viewers know, but my daughter went to Iowa State. A lot of connections. I started out in TV in that area. So I have a lot of connections to Iowa State, and I know a lot of Iowa State fans really think they should be a 1 seed over North Carolina. They're hey, you win winning a tournament and beating the then number 1 overall seed. Houston was on their way to being the number 1 overall seed, and Iowa State killed them. It wasn't even close. So they think they should be a 1 seed, but I think what. Not only does all that come into play, the Arizona had a, win at Duke and they beat Alabama and they just really built their resume up and their Ken Palm and their net ranking and all that's really high. But, there is some regionality that they're trying to keep here too. They're bringing North Carolina over here to the West, but they're going to keep Arizona here in the West. So you're going to put them as a 2. What are you going to put Arizona in the Midwest as a 2 and have Iowa State come here as a 2 because they're the 5th best team in the country? No, you're not going to do that. So
yeah, but by that argument, though, Pat, you could just as easily make Arizona the 3 in the West because they're closer, right? If you put Iowa State and Tennessee ahead of Arizona, they're you could make just as argument
no,
that they'd be the 3 seed in the West. They're closer to being the 3 seed in the West.
Their metrics clearly say they're a 2 seed. Now, if you want to make the argument they're a weak 2 seed, then you can make that argument, but you can't start moving regions amongst the twos. So they put them clearly on the 2 line, and then they just looked at it like, all right, we're moving North Carolina over here. We're going to keep Arizona in the West. And thank goodness they are. I mean, you've got to have some regionality in this whole thing. And we're already losing our conference, for goodness sakes. Right. You can't take away a 2 seed out West so we can be in LA in a week if we make it to the Sweet 16.
And one thing we know is we're not going to see 4 number 1 seeds in the Final Four.
No,
it never happens.
No, it just never happens. It never happens.
Being a 2. All right, Pat, I believe we've got some early results to our poll question. What do you think of Arizona's NCAA bracket? Well, we got some nervous Nellies, Pat. 54% saying I'm hesitant after 2 recent losses. When I wrote this poll question, the 2 recent losses I meant were Oregon in the semifinals of the Pac-12 tournament and USC in the regular season finale. That's what I meant. Yeah, I think a lot of people could also interpret that as, losing in the first round.
Either way, that's fine. Yeah. Either interpretation is fine though. Yeah.
But I don't consider that first year making it to the Sweet 16 and losing to a really good Houston team in San Antonio.
That's right.
In Tommy Lloyd's first year, I don't know, I'm not going to get upset at that. Last year, losing to Princeton,
And remember, Houston hadn't yet joined the Big 12, so there was still, they got the seed that they got 2 years ago because people weren't really sure how good Houston, was going to be. They proved that they were an Elite 8 team that year, and they took care of Arizona. And it wasn't that Arizona got blown out. It just Arizona got behind and just could never, ever quite get going the kind of basketball style that they like to play.
Yeah. So, all right. So anything else in the bracket that jumps out? I know Drake, you got to find that.
Yeah. My alma mater, a lot of people don't know. I went to U of A for 1 year. Then I transferred to run track at Drake University. So Drake will end up going up against Iowa State if Drake can knock off Washington State, which is no easy task. But remember, Drake, a lot of people don't know about Drake, Missouri Valley Conference. They've been to the tournament, Jason, 3 out of the last 4 years. And DeVries, their head coach, and his son plays as well, and he's a senior, so this will be his last hurrah. I think Drake might be able to make it to play the 2 seed Iowa State in Omaha. So Iowa State and Drake only playing 2 hours away in Omaha is a pretty good draw.
I think if you're upset about a team getting snubbed, you got to put the team that they should get in for. I'm not sure who I'm taking out for St. John's to get in.
Right.
I'm really bummed that St. John's isn't in the tournament. I thought that the committee looks hard at your most recent games. They had won like 5 in a row and only lost to UConn by 5 in the Big East semifinal. That's almost like a win. Okay, UConn's blowing everybody out. Okay, and I'm bummed St. John's is not going to get in. I think they could have snuck into the Sweet 16. Pitino taking a 6th team, I think it would be, to the tournament. Would it really be 6 teams? Iona, Louisville, Kentucky, Boston University, St. John's.
Was there
Northeastern?
Oh my gosh.
No, Providence, not Boston University, Providence.
Okay,
let me start again. Northeastern. I'm doing this by heart, so give me a.
You're doing well because I didn't remember all this.
It was either BU or Northeastern, followed by Providence, Kentucky, Louisville, Iona, and St. John's. So this would have been a 6th school taking the tournament. Nobody's ever done that. And he's took 3 to the Final Four, I believe, Louisville, Kentucky, and Providence. So I wanted to see that story. I wanted to see New York City in there with St. John's. I'm bummed St. John's isn't going to go in.
Yeah.
You can just as easily make a case for Seton Hall. But we had those bracket busters late when North Carolina State won, and then Oregon was not going to be in, and Colorado still got in as a play-in game. So, okay, let's spend a minute here on the women's
first
team.
How about we throw up 857 Tucson's let's go. He was nice enough to send in a little
there you go,
a little comment. Let's go, time to get the momentum. I'm going at the right time. Go get the momentum, going at the right time is what he meant to say.
857 Tucson for chiming in.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And we appreciate all those who chime in that watch.
Even though I didn't want the women to be in a play-in game, I'm just happy they're in.
Yeah,
Okay. I'm happy for Adia Barnes. I'm happy that they're in. Uh, they've got a chance, a real good chance to win this game against Auburn and even Syracuse in the round of 64. I think that if they play UConn in the second round, the round of 32, they're going to get absolutely smoked because UConn's going to want revenge after what happened in the Final Four
that's
3
right.
years ago. So I don't think that game will be pretty.
Yeah, but
I don't
I'd love to see that, Jason. Let them get revenge. I mean, that'd be great. I mean, that'd be a successful season to get that far
to get to the
for
second
Arizona.
round. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No,
yeah,
I agree. I
yeah.
agree. I don't want to see them get blown out, and I
No,
don't
I
think
don't
they've
either.
got anybody who can stop Paige Beckers this time around. Okay,
Yeah,
that was Ari McDonald, and they shut her down like no team has ever shut her down. And I don't think that's they've got the personnel to do this. This is great experience for the three freshmen who start:
hmm,
Jada Williams, Bray Cunningham, and Skylar Jones. I hope Helena Puello has a big tournament in her last go around. She's the only player left from the 2021 team that made it to the championship game.
right.
So glad to see them in. I wish they played Wednesday instead of Thursday, so we can kind of have the days scattered a little bit, or Friday instead of Thursday, whatever. But so all the games are going to be Thursday, Saturday for
Yeah,
the women would play Thursday, Saturday, Monday, and the men will play Thursday, Saturday, but at
yes,
different times,
right,
here in
right.
Tucson. So we can still enjoy that. They're headed to Stores, Connecticut, a fourth time in a row in the tournament for the Arizona women.
And I think you know, first of all, they did deserve to be in there, and we can have that discussion about those play-ins and why 11 seeds are having play-ins versus 16 seeds having play-ins. In the case of the men's, uh, what do they do? They do 16s and 10s, and women's tournament does 16s versus and 11s going up against each other. And it's an interesting way, an interesting theory to try to help get the lower seeds to get in, or the the non-power 5 conference teams to get in. But I think Arizona deserves to get in. I also think they're playing some really good basketball right now, Jason, and that is a testament to Adia playing the freshmen, getting them time, getting them to get past being freshmen. They're very talented freshmen, regardless. And I think that I think they'll have a good showing. I'm with you. I think they'll win that first round game or that
Yeah.
playing game.
And Dia seemed pretty confident too. She's like,
Yeah,
we've been playing in the Pac-12 all year.
right. Best
We're in the
conference
top
by
conference.
far, by
Yeah.
far. Yeah,
And she had a little message for her critics too. She's just remember this program before she got here, 300 fans in the building. Now they've got 7,000. It was a dream to go to the tournament. Now they've been there 4 years in a row. Well, we'll handle Rick Kobe's question. Oh, come on, Rick. The men aren't sandbagging. It turns out they would have been a number 2 seed. Did the men's team sandbag and lose against Oregon in order to get playing? They were going to Salt Lake as the 2 seed. It turns out if they had
regardless. Right.
beaten Oregon and won the championship, lost to Oregon, or beaten Oregon and lost the championship, all three of those scenarios would have gotten them the 2 seed in the West. You can make the argument, though, that they're a little bit more rested for not having to play 3
That's the
games.
first thing that I thought of, Jason, is how many times have they, two previous seasons, they win the Pac-12 tournament. Even though you only have to play 3 when you're one of the top seeds, you have to play 3 days in a row, and that
Yeah.
takes a lot out of your legs.
It does. I told you, I watched that entire championship game between Oregon and Colorado. Those teams were gassed.
Yeah, they were. It was last team standing is going to win that game, and Oregon just seemed to want it more. Maybe they were more rested because they had so many injury problems throughout the year that they finally were maybe together, healthy enough, and playing their best basketball. But you see it a lot. There's a lot of historical 1 seeds that won their regular season, won their tournament, number 1 seed, and then they don't make it even to the Final Four. It just happens, and it really comes down to the team that gets hot as soon as that first game tips off. If Arizona gets hot like they did in 1997 as a 4 seed and they knock off 3 number 1s, then they'll win the national championship. If they don't get hot, they don't get hot and they won't make it very far. It's just that simple.
Yeah. All right, Rick, we'll be happy to respond to you here. The other teams that were vying for the number 1 seed, yeah, but the other teams that were vying for the number 1 seed had lost, if we were to run one out, we would have gotten a number one seed. No, you would have been far from home. You'd have been if Arizona was a number one seed or a number two seed, they would have been in the West and playing in Salt Lake.
Right. They were going to be in they're going to be in Salt Lake, then in LA, no matter if they're one or two. And that's why you and I said it a couple of weeks ago. We were talking about, does it really matter if you're the one or the two when you're out West? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't
because
matter.
you're going to have to play. If you're the one, you're going to
play the
this
two where you can avoid Houston, Purdue, and UConn, which are really a cut above.
Yeah, which
they are. Iowa State for
they
that
are.
Matter.
They're the only team they're going to have to face in that. In getting to the Final Four is, the Final Four is North Carolina. And
Baylor. Oh yeah, we were talking about this. I've got PTSD. For those who don't remember, Baylor came into McHale Center in December of 2018 and out-rebounded Arizona 51-19. So I have bad memories about Baylor. Arizona couldn't get a rebound. They had so much size. I know it's a different team, but we'll see. Finished up, Joseph Gonzalez. Thanks, guys. Was looking forward to this. Men's team is hungover in Vegas. Bear down Cats feel good about this year. All right, we'll take it. And then Rick Colby. All right, last one from Rick, and then we got to keep it moving here. Look at Love's play. The coach pulled him out for most of the. I don't. That's interesting. Tommy Lloyd had Caleb Love out towards the end, in crunch time in the second half. I didn't love that. I agree with you on that one. One of our worst performance shootings of the year. Yeah, and they took the fewest shots. But if you missed it in the beginning of the show, Rick, Caleb Love had a bad ACC tournament in 2022 and then had a big NCAA tournament. So he can turn that around.
The finals. Yep.
He can turn that around. Yep. I don't like the way Love was, but I mean, you make 4 turnovers, you don't deserve to play at the end. But I would have stuck with him still at the end. When you've got a shooter like that, you just got to keep shooting. So,
well, that's something that goes on between the head coach and his player. And, you have, at some point you have to trust Tommy Lloyd at this point, just his third year as a head coach, that he knows what he's doing with those players and knows specifically how to deal with each player. And maybe it was a situation where he thought that he was tired and needed rest and started getting him a little rest earlier than everybody else. I don't know.
He's got a lot of confidence in Jaden Bradley, and Bradley's often in there, down the stretch.
He should. He should have.
He had KJ Lewis, who had a big first game. Didn't have a great second game.
No, he did not.
But had a big first game. He's going to be a terrific player. I think he should be starting next year.
Here's what I want to see, Jason, as we kind of wrap up talking about the men here, and that is, this team has got to start learning from their mistakes. And their mistakes in that game against Oregon was they were turning the ball over. Even Washington State, they were turning the ball over. These kind of games, these losses they've had over the last few weeks, it's a pretty simple formula. Don't turn the ball over and hit your shots and play good. Obviously, you got to play good defense too. And they played good defense, but they got to stop turning the ball over and they got to make their shots. They do that, and they're one of the toughest teams in the country. And we'll see if they do that.
I think, Pat, when we talk next week, we're going to be talking about them in the Sweet 16. I just feel it. A hunch. They're due. The draw. If I was going to get really honest with you, have I seen a lot of Nevada and Dayton this year? No, I haven't. Okay. So, you don't know. But I feel good about them winning 2 games here and getting to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, I really do too. I know nobody saw Providence necessarily as a loss last year, but I think we all went in going, "Oh, that's going to be tough." You always got to be careful of Providence Princeton. You always got to be careful of Princeton because of the way they play defense. And we had our kind of, you got to be careful, but they'll move on, blah, blah, blah. But I think this time you're right. I think we look at it and say, okay, they take care of business. They win the first game. They take care of business. They beat, likely going to be Dayton, and then they move on. And then we'll worry about Baylor and your 51 rebounds at McHale later.
51-19. Can you imagine that?
It was
a manhandling.
It was so bad, Jason. I blocked it out of my memory as a Wildcat fan until you brought it up to me earlier this afternoon. And I said, "That's right. I remember that game. It was brutal.
Hey, Rick, are you serious or kidding, man? We gotta wrap it up here. He says ChatGPT is picking Arizona to win it all. Are you joking or not? Be real with us here. Because if ChatGPT says it, that makes me feel even better about Arizona.
I've seen a lot of people picking them again in the Final Four, Arizona, and I think Joe Lenardi had them in the Final
People
Four.
have been burned. Dan Patrick talked about it when he was here for the Festival of Books. He said, we always pick them and we get disappointed. Barack Obama had him in the Final Four at least once.
Yeah, Barack Obama has him going out in the second round. So
I don't blame him after all the losses.
Great.
But
no, it's great.
Trust me, you're on, because I lived on the East Coast for most of my life. You live on the East Coast, you haven't seen Arizona play.
No.
You're not up at midnight, 1 a.m. watching watching Keyshawn Johnson. Okay,
no.
You barely see them. So
yep.
Anyway, Pat, any final thoughts?
No, just ready to get it going. It's the best time of the year in my book. I love college basketball and I love March Madness. Let's get it going, and let's hope that we're talking about the Arizona Wildcats still dancing when we come to next Tuesday.
All right. We'll close
Lindsey Hopkins.
We'll close Lindsey Hopkins. Lindsey's comment. Championship is my birthday this year, so I'm taking that as a sign that it's Arizona's year. Well, we'll hope they give you a big birthday present, Lindsey. Lindsey, hope you enjoy the games. And Pat, thanks again. And we'll talk to everybody next week. Hopefully, talking about Arizona in the Sweet 16. For Pat Paris, I'm Jason Barr. This has been the Huddle, King Gun 9's weekly streaming sports talk show. Hopefully, we'll talk Arizona basketball when we see you next week. Take care, everybody.